Now let's talk about navigating job sites and links. You're going to have several considerations to make. One is your email. You want to make sure that you have a dedicated job search email account. Now that might be an email that you presently have, or maybe you need to consider creating your very own email, a brand new email that's specifically dedicated to you just getting jobs, doing a job search. So if you have to create a brand new email, that's just for job follow-ups, because people are going to send you information through the email. They're going to say, well, what's your email? And they're going to send it to you, and you need to be able to access that right away. And if you have to create a brand new email, make sure that it sounds like a good business email, good business name, not like Shirley1972 at AOL, which is okay, but you don't want banjobuddy at ymca.org or something like that. You'd rather have something a little more business-like, perhaps like shir72 at gmail.com, like Sure. It would stand for Shirley, and you would know that. Or shirley.temple at gmail.com. First dot, last name, something like that. Or if it has to be banjo, maybe banjo.sources, banjo.resources at ymail.net, or something along those lines. It needs to be something that's kind of contemporary and business forward, not too complicated. And it just doesn't need to be focusing down home and fun. You want it to sound like a business. Now your resume, again, we're going to talk about that in part 2 of this, which is going to be coming up. So I'm happy to talk about that in just a little bit. Another thing that you want to consider is your answers to the following things. For example, are you willing to relocate, or do you have to stay where you're at? Because there's going to be a lot of job websites that are going to be asking. There's going to be a lot of job opportunities that are going to be asking you that. Is this a career move or just a temporary bridge between similar jobs, or is it a step to a better job position? That's something else that you want to consider. Thirdly, what income is necessary for this job? What do you require? What do you have to have? What's the least that you can take? Things like that you want to take into consideration. And then the time frame. How long do you intend to work with this employer? Will you be working your way up a ladder through a maze, or just there for 2 or 3 months, or will you be there for a season? What kind of time frame do you have? Because that also is going to play into how you approach this job opportunity. And then how soon can you start work? They're going to want to know, are you ready to go next week, next month? How fast can you get going on this? And then finally, are you willing to train to a new or unfamiliar position? Sometimes we're teachable, and sometimes like, I know it all already. I don't need to train. Depending on your willingness and ability to move forward in the training side of things, that's going to land you a job or not. Okay, let's talk about the job sites, the actual links. There's all kinds of them, and here's some that I've that are the popular ones, and some that I just created. Indeed, LinkedIn, Ohio Means Jobs is a great job site. It's very thorough. Monster, usajobs.gov if you want to do some government jobs. ZipRecruiter is a good one. Snag a job. Or if you want to stay in Lake County, there's lakecounty.ohio.gov, or statejobs.ohio.gov. Or sometimes you might just want a very business-specific job. For example, you want to work at Ohio State University, and you go to their website, and they have a careers page, or you scroll down to the very bottom of Dollar General website, and at the bottom of it says careers or jobs. And a lot of times you can get information that way, and also go forward with creating an application and get a hold of people that you can send your resume to, and so forth. Another point to consider with regard to navigating job sites and links is when you go on the site and you start filling things out, make it like an inductive search. It's kind of like a filter. In other words, be wide open with the way that you approach what words to use. Identify your position slowly. Like maybe you want to be a phlebotomist, so open up with medical positions, and then maybe medical positions pertaining to surgery or pertaining to emergency or whatever. You can work your way down to phlebotomist, if you know what I'm saying. Just open. Don't be too specific, because you may miss out on another opportunity that you didn't realize was out there and ends up being something that you want to do. Or it might be an opportunity that might lead you to being the phlebotomist that you have always wanted to be, but you need to go to this other opportunity first, this other position first. But you want to keep the goal in mind. That the main goal is what? The main goal is you want to get a job. So remember that getting hired is the key. This is only one step in the process. And even though it's important to follow up and navigate correctly, however you happen to get to the person that hires you, that's the right way. You don't have to hit every single square on the game board to get there with this. You just need to get hired. And then you'll likely be prompted repeatedly to create an account for this site, one of the ones that I showed you here on the previous screen. So if you are, it's okay to do that. Just use as minimal information as possible just so you can get access to the site, because you are the one that controls what everybody knows about you. Just because they ask, for example, your age or ask for something, they don't know who you are. You don't necessarily have to fill it out unless it's one of those required pieces of information. And if it's required, then put it in there so that you can get access to their resources. All right, and now another thing that you want to consider is reading between the lines on these job descriptions. And you want to consider the answers. You want to consider what they're saying as, yes, this is required, or that's a generic requirement, so it doesn't have to be all that specific, or is this something I can get on the job training? You'll know. Is this something that is required, that's necessary, maybe, or probably not? All of those things are sort of important. So I'm going to have a little series of questions here before we get into class activity that we need to consider. Here's some examples. The qualifications, are they typically general in nature, or what is the result? What is the necessity of them? Because they're just trying to weed out unnecessary applicants. So one example is they may say, this person is required, or this position is required to have a background in manufacturing, logistics, and operations preferred. So is that a necessity? Yes, probably in that type of position it probably is. If they want you to run heavy machinery and you've never in your life done that before, then yeah, you need to have a background in that. Or it might say order entry into SAP, purchase requisition conversion to SAP, STO, or ISTO orders. Is that something that you know how to do? Or maybe you're a little bit familiar with SAP. I'm not, but maybe you are. And perhaps that's something that you can, maybe you're familiar with SAT but not STO, or you're kind of familiar with ISTO orders but not SAP. Well, maybe is that something that you get on the job? That might be OJT, on the job training. Or customer purchase orders into SAP sales orders. You might be familiar with customer purchase orders and sales orders. With this SAP thing, not really so sure. But if you know either end of that, that would be maybe an on-the-job training, an OJT type of thing that you could pick up there. So go into it not saying that because I don't know what SAP is, I can't fill this application out. Go ahead and fill it out. And when you get into the interview, you can indicate that. I'm familiar with this, I'm familiar with that. A little shaky on the other. So is there a training that you could help me with? I learned quick, or whatever. Here's another one. Proficient in SAP and MRP functionality. Well, maybe you need to be proficient in that, but as we just discussed, maybe that's something that you can learn on the job. Here's another one. Ability to work independently or within a team or group setting. Now, I mean, basically that's saying you need to be able to work with everybody, you need to be detail-oriented, that sort of thing. That's just really generic, and everybody's going to say that. They're all going to want that sort of thing. Here's another one. Detail-oriented. Well, everybody's going to be detail-oriented, so that's very generic. I mean, why would you apply for a job and say, no, I'm not detail-oriented? You're not going to do that. Okay. Another one. Knowledge of order entry process. Well, maybe you have a generic order entry process knowledge, or maybe you have order entry process knowledge from jobs you've done before. So that would be an on-the-job training type of thing. When you're reading through these requirements, that's not necessarily a requirement. That's a between-the-lines sort of thing. If you check all the other boxes that they're asking for, that could be something you can learn. Here's another one. Familiarity with hazardous materials, international dangerous goods regulations. Now that's something that I actually found, and that would be something that, yes, you would really need to be familiar with those things. I mean, I wouldn't take a job that had to do with hazardous materials because I'm not familiar with them. I mean, I know not to drink, oil or something like that. But anyway, Okay, moving on. Tactical execution with a sense of urgency. That's just code for I'm willing to work the job and take initiative. That's all that means. Read between the lines. And again, that's very generic. And finally, oil and gas industry preferred. Well, if you're working for an oil or gas company, then yeah, that's going to be something that is going to be needed. And they say it's preferred. They're not saying it's a necessary thing. So just what I'm saying is read between the lines of the application descriptions, and don't not fill that application out just because you're not checking every single one of those boxes. Does that make sense? I think it probably does. All right, so the class action for today is you want to begin the process. Step 1, create a search list. What does it include for you? In other words, where am I going to go? What kind of job places? What are the names? Are there phone numbers I can get? Start a list of places that you want to apply. Number 2, identify your intentions and write it out. What kind of a job transition is this going to be? Is it going to be one that I want to do for a long, long time, for many, many years? Is it my career? Or is it just something that I'm doing as a step to the next job? How long am I going to be there? When am I going to start? That's something else that is very important to consider. Thirdly, identify your top 10 job skills. This is really critical, and we're going to get into that for next session with regard to your resume. But your top 10 job skills. What kind of jobs are included in those skills, or what kind of jobs include those skills, I should say. Fourthly, pretend that you already have your resume and your cover letter so that you can go to number 5 to review or create an email for job searches. Review your email. Is it a good one? Do you want to use that for job searches? Because if you get personal information on that, as well as advertising, perhaps some of the job information that you really want to get is going to get covered up and buried. Maybe you need to create a second email for job searches, and I can help you with that here at the library if you need. Number 6, write down words and answers to these things. Relocation, yes or no, are you willing? Salary requirement, stick a number in there. Commute, yes or no, how far? If it's yes, how far? Write down 50 miles, 10 miles, 5, whatever it is. Full-time, part-time, contract, seasonal, as needed. What are you willing to work? All of those, just full-time or just contract or whatever. So fill out what you're willing to do and stick with that. Start date, what's going to be your start date? How fast are you ready to start tomorrow, next week, in a couple of weeks? You kind of need to know that. Now, number 7, pick a job site link or business career link, which is one of those ones that I was showing you. Start digging around. Use these keywords that we talked about. Read between the lines. Be open to other possibilities that haven't occurred to you. I can't tell you how many times I've either helped or been myself looking for a job and been on these job sites and realized, oh, wait a minute, I can do that. I would enjoy that as well. And that might be a good step to lead me to this other thing that I was looking for to begin with. So be open to other possibilities. And then research before you spend time filling out an application and sending your resume and so forth. Because if you find out this is not the place for you and you don't really want to work there after all, you don't want to have spent your time creating all these great things about yourself, sending resumes digitally and so forth, and cover letters, and then find out that you didn't want to do that because you could have been putting that toward another job site that you wanted to go to in the first place. All right, and then finally, review the progress that you've made from now until the next time that we meet. Next time, we're going to talk about resumes, cover letters, and talk a little bit about interviews, and we'll go there. This has been Scott Howarth. There's my email down there that you can reach me at, or call me at the library at 440-259-3300, and I look forward to getting together with you next session on I Need a Job Online.